Hey guys, what's up? It's Ripe again. In today's video, my crazy neighbor destroyed my grandparents' fence and replaced it with a brick wall. By doing so, he tried to steal their property. Here is what happened. Subscribe to Ripe on YouTube and hit the bell to turn on notifications. And the first one starts like this. My grandparents had been living next to a total jerk for many years and tried their best to ignore it. As they got older, they had less energy to deal with him, so when he wanted to rant and rave, they just let him. He would find the smallest things wrong and start to kick up a huge fuss about them. One story my grandpa told me is that when he pulled into the driveway, the car was a little bit crooked. It was in the driveway fine though and not sticking out into the street. Neighbors still started yelling at him and saying that he needs to keep the car straight so it doesn't make the whole neighborhood block look bad. My grandparents were not the kind of people to engage though, and I really admire them for that. They recently had their 45th wedding anniversary, and for a surprise me and my brother pitched in to get them tickets to go on a week-long cruise. I say recently, but it was actually a couple years ago before cruises had to stop for a while. They were so happy because they never got to take a big vacation when they got married because they were so busy working, and then very soon grandma was pregnant with my father. When I got the call from them that when they got back from their trip, I was expecting to hear how amazing it was. But instead, I just heard my grandma crying and me not being able to understand any of it until my grandpa took the phone. Me? Grandpa? Is grandma alright? I was concerned something happened with her because I never knew her to get this upset over anything. She usually was not extremely emotional. Grandpa, while we were gone, the neighbor decided he was going to pull a stunt and your grandma is very hurt by what he did. Me? Did he do something to your house? Your car? Grandpa, no, he didn't do any damage like that. He took down the fence we had and built a huge ugly brick wall in its place. He moved it so far onto our property that your grandma's flower garden is now half on his side of the yard and half under the wall. My grandma had been gardening all her life and the flowers she took care of were her pride and joy. It was the only thing she really had after she retired. Me? Stay there, I'm coming over. I was angry and wanted to go right up to his house and punch him in the face. And him, of course, in this case Ripe stars not referring to grandpa but instead referring to the crazy neighbor. Anyway, I'm not usually a violent guy, but my grandson instincts kicked in and I was angry. I knew that if I hit him, he would have me arrested and my grandparents would not be very happy about that. Instead, I went to their house and helped calm my grandma down before telling them that I was gonna take care of everything for them. I did not know much about property issues except from the stories I read online. Still, I was not gonna let them get stressed out from it all. The first thing I did was went to the town hall and started telling my story until I got pointed in the right direction. I might have come off as a little aggressive, I'll admit that, but I wanted something to get done. If I went in showing that I was serious and angry, then there was a better chance of something getting done about it. I had pictures of the wall that he put up and showed how it cut right through my grandma's garden. I told them that I wanted something done about the wall that he put up and not going to take no for an answer, that they couldn't do anything. I knew that we were probably gonna end up going to court and having lawyers dish things out, but I knew there had to be something the town could do as well. It turned out that I was right and I was told that they had a contract with a land surveyor that did all of the work for the town. They also would look into records since building a wall would have needed a permit while a fence would not have. At that point I calmed down finally and knew that I would just have to wait a couple days for the guy to come and look over the property to see who it belonged to. In the meantime, I found a lawyer and told him the situation about the neighbor trying to steal my grandparents' property while they were gone for a week. He was a super nice guy and told me to send him the information as soon as the land got looked over. No shock, he had built on our land and kept claiming that the survey we had done was wrong. We were lucky that we didn't have to go to court and instead were just able to sit down with the lawyers and try to work things out. The only thing he could come up with as a defense was that the mapping was wrong and he wanted to hold off on anything until another company could come and look things over. My lawyer pointed out that the one we used was validated by the town and would hold up in court more than anything he could get. Basically, what I wanted was the wall to be taken down and damages to be given for my grandma's garden. This is where things got a little bit weird. Since he knew he did not have a permit and would get in more trouble if he didn't agree to take down the wall and put a fence back up. He was arguing though that the garden was his and that it did not matter if he damaged it. He even admitted that it had been on my grandparents' property the entire time, but that he was the one planting the flowers. I know you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, but if there was an image of a guy that didn't look like he planted roses and such, it would be this guy. I had proof and photos of my grandma with the flowers though, with all the evidence against him, and even his own lawyer saying that he should settle instead of going to court. He gave in. He was going to take down the wall at his own cost and put up a fence again where it was supposed to be. Additionally, he gave my grandparents money so they could fix the land to make it fit for a garden again and buy replacements for the things he destroyed. I just cannot get over somebody like this existing where they see old people and think that they can just do anything they want. The sad part is that if they didn't have somebody like me to help, he might have gotten away with it. The whole time I was fighting against him, I could still hear my grandma crying, and the fact anybody could do that to an old woman makes me sick. If any of you reading this have grandparents, parents, or other elderly people in your life, please help them when they need it, because society can sometimes suck for them. And yeah, ripe stars, I gotta say, these are the worst kinds of people that try to take advantage of the elderly. Especially if it is an entitled neighbor that tries to enlarge his own property. What a douchebag, seriously. Either way, the next one is titled The Worst Karen I've Ever Encountered. A little background to start off. I started a new job with the county about a month ago. I was hired to be a juvenile correctional specialist. It's not a glamorous job, but I absolutely make sure my clients are safe, afforded every right they are entitled to, and I treat them with respect and dignity. That being said, I don't live in a great area and my uniform looks a lot like a police officer's uniform, so I never wear it outside of work if I can help it. Just because I don't want to deal with potential issues, which seems to be the right call after this incident. It's also important to note that during my orientation, my training officer spent a literal hour explaining the many ways that are appropriate and inappropriate when it comes to representing oneself. For instance, in our county, I am considered and therefore legally allowed to refer to myself as an officer of the peace, an officer of the county, an officer of the court, and a correctional officer. At no point and for no reason am I ever legally allowed to represent myself as, or even imply that I am an officer of the law, a police officer, or any other title of that nature. If someone assumes that I'm a cop, I legally have to correct them, or I could potentially lose my job. I could even be fined or arrested based on the situation. I will point out, however, that my uniform and badge carry the same legal obligations and repercussions when it comes to damage, theft, etc., because it is all considered county property. So yesterday I get done working a double and get ready to leave work. I had not expected the forced overtime, so I had not checked the weather for the evening shift. Lo and behold, I had left my windows cracked through a rainstorm and my extra shirt and jacket had gotten soaked. This would have been fine because it was dark, so I was not worried about someone seeing me go from my car to my house, but we were out of milk and I really needed to stop at the Mart of Walls. Normally, I would just take off my uniform shirt and badge and throw on my extra shirt, but I did not feel like donning a soggy top or going into the store in the tank top I wear under my uniform shirt. Plus, it was 15 minutes until close and I was just running in and out, so what's the worst that could happen? I ran in, grabbed the milk, grabbed some ice cream because why not, and headed to self-checkout. The line was pretty long and wrapped around towards the entrance, so I was in the entitled lady's direct line of sight when she stepped through the doors. While she did not fit the mold of the traditional Karen, I think she still counts. She was an older woman, probably in her 50s, in heels and a rather low-cut sundress. Fake tan, fake hair, and clearly fake boobs. I clock her making a beeline straight for me in my periphery and continue staring straight forward because something about her seemed a little off. Maybe it was the odd gait with the slight stumble every few steps, or the fact that she was kind of mumbling to herself, but I had a feeling that she was under the influence of something. She got about 5 feet away and I could smell the alcohol emanating from her. She then reached out and firmly tapped my shoulder. The following is our conversation, nearly word for word as best as I can remember. EP: "Excuse me, I'm so glad I made it before they closed." Me: "That's great," continues staring forward, attempting to ignore her. EP: "Well, I just came in because I really need milk for my kids' breakfast tomorrow." "Do you think you could help me out a bit?" Me: "Sure, the milk is on the wall at the back of the store. Just head straight back down that main aisle and you will walk straight into the dairy section." She looks at me dumbly for several seconds. EP: "Well, that's not really what I want. You see, I noticed that you have the same kind of milk that my family drinks, so I thought maybe you could let me have it, that way I can get home to my kids sooner." Me: "No, thank you. I'm good." EP: "Wait, what does that mean? I cannot have the milk?" Me: "That's correct. You can take 3 minutes to walk back and get your own milk, just like I did. That's how groceries work." Again, she stares at me for several moments, trying to process the situation through the haze of intoxication. EP: "You are being incredibly rude and you should not even be in here." Me: "How do you figure that out? My tax dollars are not supposed to be paying for the police to go shopping while on duty. Now give me that milk. I want your badge number so that I can talk to your superiors about your inappropriate behavior." Me: "Ma'am, I'm not a cop and I'm not on duty. I just happen to be coming home from work and still have my uniform on." EP, now starting to shriek and attract attention: "You are obviously lying. I can see your badge right there. I won't let you get away with lying just to protect your job." At this point, she begins to claw at the badge-shaped patch that is sewn onto the upper right shoulder of my uniform shirt. Not wanting to escalate things further, I took a step back and grabbed my real badge to show her. Now, it's not like a metal badge or a jacketed ID like cops or detectives carry. It's literally just a laminated card in a clear pouch attached to a retractable clip on my belt. The pocket also contains my electronic access card to the jail itself, the whole jail, not just the juvenile side, which was about to become a huge deal. Me holding up a badge: "See how it says corrections specialist, not police officer." Bold as anything, this crazy drunk reaches out, snatches my badge out of my hands and rips it off my belt. Now, at this point, the bystanders that had been nervously standing and muttering amongst themselves went silent because, like most sane and rational human beings, they realized that it's never a good idea to take the badge of someone in a uniform, whether they are a cop or not. I myself took a moment to respond because I truly could not understand the idiocy of stealing anything, let alone a badge, over a gallon of milk. I would have been within my rights to grab her and force her to give it back, but again, I didn't want things getting out of hand, so I decided to reason with her. Me: "Ma'am, I don't think you realize the consequences of what you have just done. That is the badge of a county officer, and stealing one is a misdemeanor if you are lucky. However, behind that badge is my swipe card for the jail. You have literally just stolen a key to the county jail, which is a felony with a potential 10-year sentence. This is absolutely true, by the way. I think you should probably hand it back to me right now, because I don't think a gallon of milk is really worth a decade of your life." EP, now starting to look a little nervous: "That's not what I meant to do." Looking at the bystanders for support: "You saw how she was being rude to me, right? I was just trying to get her information and she wouldn't give it to me. I did not do anything wrong, right?" Unbeknownst to either of us, one of the customers ahead of us was either an off-duty cop or retired, I couldn't tell which. He piped up with, "Ma'am, I would do as the officer suggests if I were you. I cannot slap cuffs on you right now, but I've got a few guys on speed dial that would happily do it for me, and since they patrol this area, I would say you've only got a couple of minutes to make your choice." And with that, he pulled out his phone and started swiping. All the color drained out of EP's face, and she basically flung my badge at me as she jerkily rushed out of the store, ranting and mumbling loudly something about how it was just a damn gallon of milk. I thanked the older guy and told him not to bother calling anyone. Everyone got through the checkout like responsible adult human beings, and I gotta go home and enjoy my ice cream, having learned that I should really just do my shopping on my days off. And the next one is titled Most Awful Landlord. And by the way, if you have enjoyed the stories until here, I would really appreciate it if you could post some star emojis in the comments and maybe even like the video, because that would help me out tremendously. Especially since YouTube is really giving me a hard time right now and it doesn't recommend my videos to my old subscribers. So this goes back to my university days. My friends and I got a townhouse together in a complex that was pretty much 100% students. The landlord also owned 3 or 4 other townhouses in the complex. He seemed like a great guy, especially compared to some of the sketchy people we met during our search. The first year went great, but landlord had a heart attack. Thankfully he survived, but decides to sell his townhouses to lower stress and retire. New landlord comes over to say hi and immediately is like, "We need to change things around." So the rental lease we had meant the landlord was to pay all water and electricity. This was common for most student housing because it would be a pain for students every year to sign contracts with water and electrical providers. She tells us she's gonna put a device, I think it's called a governor, on our water heater so that it will not fill up during peak hours, aka daytime, telling us we have to do laundry at night. She did not mention that we might not get hot showers during the day. She tells us it's not that big of a deal and all of the other places have them as well. She tries to trick, bully and coerce us into just letting her do it. One of my friends, M, tells her that there's nothing about that in the lease, so she cannot legally do that. She leaves but keeps pushing us to install the device. Later in the year, she comes over to berate us for our energy use. She presents us with the energy bills for a few townhouses she owns and points out how we are the highest. We point out that we are a 5-bedroom townhouse and the ones she is comparing us to are 3 and 4 bedrooms. Meanwhile, she is ignoring any repairs to our unit and questioning when something went wrong, implying if it predates her buying the unit from the original landlord, she was not liable to fix it. Her calls to get the water heater device and get us to use less electricity finally pushes M to exact some petty revenge. M decides he wants to see how much electricity we can use. The meter outside our unit shows a dial going around clockwise that monitors our electricity usage. Normally it might do 1 rotation in a minute. M wants to see how fast he can get it going, so he goes around to all of the housemates and asks them to turn on all their computers, TVs, stereos, anything that has a plug. He hits the override on the water heater to get it to fill, turns on the laundry dryer, he was actually doing laundry so not being a total dick, and then the coup de grace turns on the oven and all 4 burners. We go outside and he had gotten it up to 1 revolution a second. This does not last long as he blows a fuse in the oven and M decides he has gotten his petty revenge, so we got back to normal usage. I guess the electricity bill for that month was much higher than normal, and so on the next call from landlord she seemed resigned to us not giving in to her demands. I believe M told her that we can curtail our electricity usage if things get fixed around here. Addendum. So the one most needed repair in our townhouse was on the 2nd floor of the 3-floor unit. There was a little hallway between the living room and the kitchen. Being a high-traffic area, it took a lot of wear and tear. At some point we noticed the floor, which was carpeted, was soft and we suspected that the floor underneath was falling apart, but the landlord ignored it. The problem in the floor only grew until we had masking tape around a circle in the floor indicating the danger zone. I did not stay in the place the next year because she was making people sign a new lease. However, they did get the landlord to fix the floor. She sent her son over and he ended up falling through the hole in the floor to the ceiling below. My friend was on the 1st floor and saw a leg appear above him and says it was the funniest thing ever. And yeah, ripe stars, that certainly serves this entitled and greedy landlord right. Have you ever dealt with awful landlords before? Let us know in the comments. Either way, thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you again tomorrow.